I developed a passion for clay during lockdown, and it has stuck with me since. I've also been making jewellery from this clay, and it has developed into this project. So I stuck with what I knew, and I made it my main focus going forwards. Developed from my love of fantasy and fairy tale, I wanted to focus on influences from Middle-earth and Disney. If you look closely, you will be able to see through the window small flickering flame, and this is meant to replicate a fireplace. The purpose of this project is for you to tap into your childhood nostalgia and imagine yourself as a small little woodland fairy or a woodland critter, curled up to the next warm fire.
I suppose the first thing is to talk about my visual exhibition and what it's about. So the name of the visual exhibition is called Young Black Migrants, and the idea is to enable young migrant communities in Southampton to come together and explore their rich and diverse backgrounds. So looking at the city's vast and long history as a place of journeys, migration, refuge and sanctuary. The visual piece will aim to encourage pride, reconnection and celebration in young people's personal heritage, which will hopefully in turn provide a cross-cultural understanding within the wider community. The idea then is to have a vehicle, a channel of some sort, a much needed platform, which will be created from this visual piece to reach those often marginalized young people, so they can have a voice and share their experiences within Southampton and beyond. So in terms of the production itself and the creation of the piece, it involved face-to-face creative consultation with 5 young black people initially. The idea was to have 10-minute videos of each participant exploring their past, their present, their future as young black Africans in Southampton. This was then wilted down to 2 young people, just in terms of the amount of work that we had to do and the amount of filming hours that we had to put in. In the end, we filmed for about 3 hours all in all, and we ordered that down to a 16-minute piece documentary featuring 2 young people. The idea was obviously to document their oral stories in the hope that that can be archived as part of Southampton's migrant history, and of course to share their contributions and the contributions that young black people make to Southampton and the UK and to the wider community, and of course share positive black role models rather than negative within Southampton communities. The experiences and the stories that the young people were sharing with us range all the way from young people's experiences of moving to Southampton, capturing their migrant stories of their parents or grandparents, the reasons why they came here. And these 2 in particular have never or rarely engaged with such heritage projects before. So I suppose it's important to hear their stories. As mentioned before, they're often either hard to reach or they feel marginalized. So I hope you enjoy the piece, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch it. Thank you.
The Maze of Sunken Liberty is a sculptural installation that explores the formal and conceptual qualities of concrete structures in urban landscapes. It visualises the socio-political connotations of urban neglect and flawed urban construction, representing modern failures. By prompting viewers to reflect on the overlooked imperfections in the built environment, the installation considers concrete's historical associations with the failed utopian promises of federal governments. The concrete and steel sculptures challenge notions of perfection by subverting the intended functionality of industrial materials and offering an alternative perspective on the cities we reside in. The interconnected network of concrete blocks and poles are surrounded by functionless structures that guide the viewer along a designated path. These inanimate objects represent social control and conformity, urging a reflection on the lack of mental and physical freedom prevalent in current capitalist cultures. It inherently embodies the potential for disobedience to the power structures that surround us.
Constant Change is a series about my journey since I moved to the UK. Starting at the center of the exhibition, you will find a mechanic flipbook animation that I made. It represents what I first saw in Southampton, a city that is well known for the history of the Titanic, its magical light creatures Pony Horse, which run freely in their forest, and lastly, the open door from Godhouse Tower that felt like it was giving me a fresh start to becoming who I am today. Surely, moving from tropical to subtropical country made me notice the different ways of human life. It is unusual for tropical people like me to plan what to wear, things that we can or cannot do based on the weather, because the weather is always the same throughout the year, and you could easily pick some fresh fruit you like wherever you go. However, in this new condition, I realized the importance of planning, and I made some notes of things or activities that we can do for each season. I like to pour the knowledge into the series of words called Constant Change, in which I can capture people and their activities as the seasons change. You can see what morning and spring bring, from a gentle gesture to begin a life, up to a new spirit to explore the world. Day in summer, as the day gets hot, we can do many water activities, while soaking in the sun that is rarely seen in a year. Autumn, with its own way of calming the swamp, providing food to forage, and exploring other creatures surrounding us. Lastly, on winter nights, as you sit under a roof made of stars, and the silence meets the cold air, it may help us to relax and reflect on experiences that we got on a year full of journeys.
Hi, my name is Helen Harvey, and you are looking at my printmaking, which I'm hoping is suspended and moving as people move past it. I came into this body of work suffering from long COVID fatigue, which I am still in the process of recovering from. And at first I was quite daunted by whether I was going to be able to actually complete any work. But with careful planning and pacing and not giving up and being determined, it gradually came together. I'm a printmaker, and I have used the wood blocking technique to carve into wood. It's a bit like relief lino printing. But what I helped myself to manage the work is I kept each individual wood piece small, which enabled me to create repetitive patterns, and it became a larger piece out of small motifs. Hopefully it engenders a sense of calm and serenity. I felt that as I worked, it actually calmed me down. The therapeutic effects of art on people and the maker as they are creating and making marks. I want to install a sense of calm and tranquility in my work. I hope the subtle movement of the prints and the ephemeral changes of light on the surface and through the surface will enhance a meditative and mindful experience within the viewer.
This exhibition presents the artworks created by children with the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and their mothers during the autism art workshops taking place in March, April and May 2023 in Southampton in England. Against Refrigerator Mothers project is a counter and objection mainly to Leo Kanner theories, and aims to show the love and extraordinary emotional bond that forms between a mother and her autistic child. Leo Kanner, in theories developed in 1940s, suggested that children with autism had suffered delays in emotional and social development due to a lack of warmth and affection from their parents. Kanner observed that children were exposed from the beginning, quote, to parental coldness, obsessiveness, and a mechanical type of attention, to material needs only. They were left neatly in refrigerators which did not defrost. Their withdrawal seems to be an act of turning away from such a situation to seek a comfort in solitude. End of quote. In a 1960 interview, Kanner bluntly described parents of autistic children as just happening to defrost enough to produce a child. In opposition to Kanner, in the late 1920s, psychologist John Watson advocated that parents should never hug and rarely kiss their children. Mother's love is a dangerous instrument which may inflict a never-healing wound, he said. His own son committed suicide. Such concepts cause enormous pain for many families for decades before they were debunked. Modern research generally agrees that autism spectrum disorder has epigenetic etiology.
Hello, my name's Lucy Pick. I'm the artist who has made the 4 quilts which are hanging from the structure of the building at God's House Tower and are surrounded by birdsong, which I've recorded either from my garden or from walks around the woods near me in Bishopstoke. The quilts are stitched from fabric which has been dyed and decorated with mostly natural dyes and pigments. I've been a painter for about 25 years who's worked largely with oil on canvas, which is a traditionally very masculine art form, although I've always been drawn and loved the different seasons, the changing weather, the nature, and definitely the need to protect our wonderful, fruitful planet. I'm fascinated by colour and marks and what can be created by the natural materials, which has led me to sort of a pathway of research where I have learned of the women creators that have gone before me and the different decisions and choices they've made through their pathway. Among women, personal decisions definitely have political overtones. A large number of the craftswomen between the wars never married or had children. They definitely made decisions that in order for them to continue their practice, that it was required that they didn't have what were the traditional roles that were expected of them. And that's one of the things that fascinates me, the different life choices for women, craftswomen, how the personal, by working with domestic materials, by working with things which are hangings or quilts or clothes, how that is a very domestic and a small, low art or craft, but how actually it is a political statement. And that's led to the pieces of work that are around you at the moment, because I have taken something which is, as I say, a domestic craft of quilts, and I've decorated them and painted them and printed with them using natural dyes and pigments that I have found and created, which is a very time-consuming, very seasonal process. You have to do it when the petals are right, when the colours are right, and you have to prepare it, and it's the process is very time-consuming, which I think makes it a very reflective process. But then I've used quotes from statements that have been made about the crafts movement. For example, an ideal worker was Paul Nash's description of Phyllis Barron, who was one of the block printers that I particularly was interested. The Great Experiment is a statement that was used around the Dartington Trust, which is a place that celebrates, or was created to celebrate, the crafts in the Great Britain at the time. I'm fascinated by the use of the political within the domestic and how the banners or quilts could potentially appear to be a political or a union banner. The idea is it makes you reflect, think, question a little bit, or even if it doesn't, I hope that they're pleasing to look at. They work in the aesthetic as well as just a thought process. Anyway, I hope you enjoy my work, and thanks for listening.
With this piece, I wanted to create a kind of life-size collage, something that was playful and embraced the messy contradictions, the absurdity of life. It's a movable collage that may change during the exhibition. People can take pieces away with them there and then. So much like my ideas and my perspective, It's always going to be changing. I kind of like the idea of people being able to buy it directly from me. So they're taking a piece of me and there's some kind of exchange. But obviously I'm not going to be there for the whole exhibition, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. There's going to be drawings, paintings, text, stitch, postcards, memories. Some of it will be pretty, some of it will be ugly, some of it will be very finished and polished, but most of it won't be. Some of it will be incomplete. So again, some of it will change. But as an overall arching thing, there will be a kind of person form coming forward from it. This might make sense to some people. They might see that person. They might connect with some of it. They might not. Or they might just think it looks like the crazy wall in a serial killer's bedroom. I'm not in control of that.
La petite mort. To be touched, to feel touch, pleasure in vulnerability. The spaces between are filled with tiny galaxies of ecstasy. I am in love.
Radiate. I am what I have put inside. I have goodness. I have love. I am home in my body. I am my home. I'm my own safe haven.
Disassociazione. L'atmosfera cambiò bruscamente. Prima di quello avevo ammirato il bellissimo tramonto, i rossi e l'intensità. E poi ho deciso di fare un'esperienza da corpo esterno. Ho lasciato il mio sé fisico. Ero in mare, stavo galleggiando e mi sono trasportata nella mia spiaggia preferita. Il mare è così turchese e momentaneamente ero in pace.
Hi, I'm Ebony Inch. I'm the artist who made the pieces Swatch, Ball of Yarn and Childhood. When I first applied to the Lucky Dip bursary, I'd only really painted portraits using oil paints and acrylics. And just before I applied, I tested out this new idea where I created a crochet pattern to try and create this two-toned portrait. So for me, that was really pushing the boundaries of what I could create. And my initial idea was to create a series of self-portraits in that way, using crochet and yarn, to show the common threads that we carry throughout the different stages of our lives. So I went into the first meeting with a really solid idea of what I wanted to do. But the main message of the meetings was about using the experience to test things out and experiment. Rather than jumping straight in and starting on my final pieces, I made these really small square swatches with different crochet stitches, knit stitches, yarn weights, just trying things out. So I went on to start my portrait, and I was really happy that I was doing something different and pushing myself. But I really felt that this was such a good chance to do something completely different, to really push myself even further. So that's really where Swatch came from. So having started out on my childhood portrait, the one that's in the show today, I found there was something really joyful and playful about it, and it's something I really liked, and I really wanted to take that route with some other artwork. Thinking about how I'd started out on my project with the square swatches, I kind of had the thought, well, what if I just made a giant swatch? And to keep with the playful theme, I wanted to make it in bright colours and this squishy texture as well. So I got this hand crank circular knitting machine that people use to make hats and socks and stuff like that. And I got a whole bunch of brightly coloured yarn, and I used the machine to create this massive tube, and it was about 26 metres long. It was massive. So then I got some teddy bear stuffing and I stuffed the entire tube to create a giant yarn, and I knitted that up into a square swatch, just like the ones I started out with. So from creating that, I then thought about doing the same thing, but I made a smaller tube. I used a smaller machine to do that one, and I rolled it up obviously to make this bright pink ball of yarn, which is in the show today as well. That's really the journey that I've taken throughout this project and how I ended up with the pieces that I have in the show today. Altogether, I do just hope that they bring people a sense of joy, a little bit of playfulness, a bit of fun, And I hope you enjoy my work and all the other work from all of these amazing artists here today. Thank you very much for listening.